Hi everyone, welcome to our weekly Q&A session, and today it's my pleasure to welcome here our lovely, our beloved coach Daniel. So it's really nice to see you first time in the new year. And how are you today, Daniel?
Very good, very good. Nice seeing you as well. And hey, everybody out there. Yeah, all good on my end. I'm sitting. I was just when I got the notification on my phone that we're doing this live today. I was sitting down writing this book I'm working on called Principles of Natto, and I'm kind of distilling like everything we learned from understanding insomnia to some principles that apply to all inner struggle. And it's really fun and fascinating, and I've written about 18,000 words. I think it's going to be like 30,000, 35,000. But so yeah,
Wow.
anyway, hopefully or I'm sure sometime in 2025 it'll be done. But anyway, that's what I was working on.
Yeah, perfect. We are all looking forward to your new book. And I'm sorry, I had flu last week, and still my voice is not perfect. So my apologies. But I see the questions coming in, and we can start with the first one. And we have a question from Annie. How do you deal with waking up in the middle of the night every night and not being able to go back to sleep, and it still taking many hours until the alarm clock finally goes off? So, what are your thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah. Firstly, thanks for asking, Annie, and I'm glad you found us. And I want to share like my sort of standard generic answer to the question of like what should I do when I wake up in the middle of the night. And I always talk about these three things that I think can be really helpful. And so when you find yourself awake in the middle of the night, I think one thing that can be really helpful is to not know the time. Oftentimes we intuitively, instinctively go like, oh my gosh, I'm awake, what time is it? And then we see the time, and that almost invariably leads to us being more stressed. Either it's like, oh my gosh, I only slept an hour, or oh my gosh, I only have an hour left to sleep, or something like that. And it seems like Ani didn't mention time at all. So it's very possible that Ani has learned this or has seen this being helpful. So I think that's number one. Number two for me is don't fight reality. And what does this mean? Well, this means that the fact is when we wake up in the middle of the night and we sense that we're somewhat aroused, we're probably not going to fall asleep immediately. Then the reality is that we'll probably be awake for a little bit. That's reality. And if we try to fight reality, that just creates struggle for us. And when I mean fight reality here is when we wake up in the middle of the night, we're not happy with the fact that we're awake, and we're like, what can I do to make myself fall asleep again? Should I count sheep? Should I do this, listen to this meditation access? Should I do this and that? And then we're fighting reality. We're trying to change reality. We're trying to fight the fact that we're awake, which makes us more upset, more aroused, and we have even more wakefulness, right? So not knowing the time, not fighting reality, and then finally befriending wakefulness, which is that not only are we kind of accepting the reality that we are awake, but we're turning it into something that's more acceptable for us. So for Ani, it could be like asking themselves like, what would I like to do if I happen to find myself awake at night? Not that I enjoy it or that I'm happy with it, but that can just make that moment a little easier. Maybe it is having a book prepared or a podcast prepared or just resting or something like that. And when that happens, when we're no longer fighting reality, we're no longer struggling to sleep again, then we may still be awake for hours even, but it's not as painful because we're not fighting with that. And eventually, when our brain learns that there is no threat, it's okay to wake up at night, it's okay to be awake at night, then actually sleep happens easier because there's nothing kind of threatening around sleep or around the night. So that would be my reply here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. It's definitely very helpful. But I would like to share my 2 cents. The first one would be that the fact that you woke up means that you were sleeping before. So we also need to look also at the positive side of the things. And actually today I had a really nice one-on-one with one of my clients, and she said like she had. On Sunday night, it was like one of the most difficult nights she had in past couple of weeks, and she would say like she would wake up every single hour. She felt like she wasn't sleeping at all, and every hour she was checking the time. And she is still it's a work in progress for her to just forget the leave the clock, not look at the clock at night. But in the morning when she was analyzing the night, she realized Oh, actually, the fact is that she is living close to a church. And despite she would wake up every hour, she would look at the clock every hour. She said, like, I didn't hear the
The
bells
bell.
from the church. Exactly. That would usually ring like this, a little dong that it does every hour. She didn't hear this. Then she realized, oh, I thought I didn't sleep the whole all night long, but actually I must have slept in between. Right. So this is wonderful. And so not something what is helpful is not only looking for the proofs that we didn't sleep, but also looking for proofs that we did sleep could be really, really helpful.
Yeah, that's right. And I can imagine her like in the morning being like kind of sad and like, frustrated, like, I didn't sleep. And then just realizing that, wait a minute, I didn't hear the church bells. I must have
Yeah,
slept more than I thought. And then immediately feeling better, like lighter, easier. And it's just like this illustration again of like, it's how we think about things rather than what happened that really matters.
exactly. Yeah. Okay. Um, Now we have a question from AIM. Hello. I was wondering if you had success with helping patients with mental illness like schizophrenia to reach a break in their insomnia and maintain their success. So, an experience,
Yeah,
Daniel?
yeah, yeah. I would say I can't, recall specifically like one of my students or our students who had schizophrenia, but that doesn't really matter because my answer to this question is also sort of a generic one.
Mhm,
That there are a million things that can disrupt our sleep, and I'm sure schizophrenia can do that too. Bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, as well as heart failure and diabetes. All kinds of things can disrupt our sleep.
mhm,
But the way we define insomnia is a struggle that comes from a fear of not sleeping. And that really is what creates a struggle. If somebody has, let's say, schizophrenia, and that for some reason, the schizophrenia itself or the medications it creates sleep disruption, but we're not afraid of that, then it's just like, oh, I had a little choppy sleep or I slept less. It's not really a struggle for us. The struggle happens when we think, oh my gosh, I didn't sleep enough. This is wrong. This shouldn't be happening. I will never sleep again. That the fear of not sleeping is really what creates a struggle. And that's what we call insomnia, when we have a struggle based on a fear. So if somebody has schizophrenia and insomnia, then we can definitely help with the insomnia part.
mhm.
And when there's no fear around sleeping again, then we still might have some sleep disruption, but there's no struggle around sleep. And that applies to any type of mental illness or health problem or anything else that can cause sleep disruption. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for answering. Cool. Now we have a question specifically for you, Daniel, from Marco. Question for Daniel. In your book, This is Natto, is the roadmap. In one of your podcasts, you said that there is a new roadmap. Is there a new roadmap?
Yeah, that's a very nice and specific question. Yes, there is a new roadmap. And that is the roadmap that is used in the Insomnia Immunity Program. And there's nothing secret about it. Maybe I should do some content and share it on the channel. But basically, in this is Natto, I had, I think, like 7 steps, and then I kind of simplify that to just 4 steps. And it's if I remember them correctly, it's like still Oz. The first kind of step is still the same, which is actually going. The step is actually going from Oz to this zigzag or what do we call it?
Yo yo.
Yo-yo, exactly. The first step is from Oz, where we're completely like bewildered, like confused. We have no clue what's going on. A very difficult step. And then we start learning. And the first step is from like Oz to like yo-yo. And yo-yo is when we have some understanding, but we still have quite a lot of fear. So things tend to go, back and forth. And then, so the first stage is Oz. The second stage is yo-yo. And the first step is, between the two of them. And then the second step is from the yo-yo to what I now call seedling. And seedling is like the next phase or stage where the teachings have sunk in a little deeper and things are overall not as much yo-yo as in the yo-yo stage, but there's still a little fear left, right? And
Mhm.
seedling is more like there's not real kind of little left for us to learn, or maybe less befriending to do, etc. It's just for things to kind of seek in. So seedling is like a little seed that's planted, and it just needs a little time for it to start flourishing, and something like that. And then immunity, of course, is the last phase, where we have learned intellectually and experientially. And although we may still have some fears, we will still have times where there's a little bit of a struggle comes back. We will never again, go back into a place where we're really struggling, like go back into all the efforts, go backwards, like because we have too much understanding to do that. So we're kind of immune to that, to the Oz phase, or the really difficult struggle. So those are the new roadmap, if you will.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for answering. We have one thank you note from AIM. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Cool. A question from HB. I'm on call this week for my IT job. I'm struggling with the idea of being interrupted by a phone call, responding to it, and then going back to sleep. How can I approach or view this? So, what do you think, Daniel?
Yes. It's a common question. We have many versions of this question. When there's something that we're afraid will disrupt our sleep, it could be a call when we're on call. Another common one is, of course, like we have a small child or a baby, and we're afraid that the baby will wake up, and then we will wake up, etc., etc. I think one way to approach this is sort of the detective way approach, to look historically at times when we have gotten a call and we have fallen back asleep, to see that it's very possible. Even if we're waken up by a call, it doesn't predict anything. We can fall back asleep even if that happens, right? That's one. Another way to approach this is to sort of play this out in our mind. Say that we get a call and we end up sleeping very little after that, and think of what is likely to happen. Yeah, we're likely to be a little tired, a little frustrated, maybe, something like that, but nothing catastrophic happens, right? We're still safe, we're still okay, and sort of the willingness to experience the scenario that we're afraid of can really teach us that there is no actual danger or threat. That's really, really helpful. And then I'll add one final thing, which is, it's helpful to see, I think, that what we're really afraid of is not like the call itself, but some like hypothetical outcome of the call. And why I highlight this is, when we think that, oh no, I have to make sure I don't get any calls, then we're not seeing the true thing we're afraid of, which is like what we think will happen if we get the call. And that's helpful, because you can say that a person who's so afraid of calls say like, oh, I can't do on call anymore. I say like, I have to step down from my position at work, and then come to this realization that there no longer can be any calls, but then there's something else, like, okay, I can't get any call anymore, but what if my neighbor starts making noise or something like that? Something else comes up. So seeing this can lead us away from trying to avoid the thing and the kind of the object, the call, the baby crying, whatever it is, and go deeper and see what we're truly afraid of, and find a willingness to meet that. That leads to like a more permanent place of peace of mind, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for answering. And yeah, it's absolutely about being afraid of a disruption. And when we pull in all the means to avoid something that will disrupt our sleep, then we are making a huge effort that is eventually bringing a lot of focus to our sleep. And we are just basically telling our brain like, hey, if I wake up in the middle of the night, this is a problem. And our brain loves problems, right? It is a problem-solving machine. So it's very likely that it's going to happen because we are afraid of it, right? So the more indifferent approach we can apply to the sleep disruption, then also our brain is going to treat it in a more indifferent way.
Yeah, that's very nicely said. And I'll just add a quick comment to that. Like, you can almost summarize what you said as in, like, if we're deploying a lot of effort to avoid one sleep disruption, like the call, it kind of teaches our brain that any sleep disruption is unacceptable, which will make our brain super, super sensitive to any type of potential disruption, even that we have even more struggle, right, from random disruptions, right? So yeah, just a little commentary to that.
Absolutely. Okay, now we have a question from Priscilla Ruiz. How do you deal with having to be at work early and not being able to sleep and not freaking out? So, what do you think, Daniel?
Yes, I would say the following: that one of the most common, questions I get from students is something along the lines of like, how can someone even deal with this for months or even longer period of times? How can someone be okay with work when they have nights when they hardly sleep? So I often, when I do these success story interviews, I often ask that question, like, so how did you do at work? Like you had the struggle for several months and you had the work to do, and how did you function? And I always get the same answer. This answer always becomes, it was tough, but somehow I muddled through, right? It's evidence to me that we humans, we have more resources than we often imagine. Even if we have a really difficult night, even if it's not just, we're tired from sleep disruption, but we have all this emotional struggle, the emotional turmoil inside, we can often do really, really remarkably well during the day, even when we don't believe it's possible. So that's the first thing I want to say. And secondly, the question here is sort of like, how can one meet this situation without being afraid or without being frustrated? And to some extent, I would say that there's nothing we can predict or control there. None of us can find a way to for sure have a choppy night without being afraid or without reacting to it. We may have some reaction to it, but I think the answer is more that if we happen to be afraid or we happen to be frustrated, see that's also safe. That's also okay. Like a willingness to face whatever emotion that comes our way, really, really helpful. And maybe a final note on this one is that the self-kindness piece that we often talk about, which is oftentimes when we have a choppy night, what really bothers us is our own storyline. We tell ourselves like, something is wrong with me. Why can't I get this? I'll never be okay. And that type of inner dialogue is what makes the day really, really difficult. So when we go from that to being like, yeah, it was a choppy night, it was because I was anxious, but it's okay, I'm still fine. When we kind of gentle with ourselves, that makes the day very, very much easier and lighter, and things become better for us.
Totally agree. Yeah, cool. Another question from Emily Nicole is, I have dealt with insomnia for a long time. 7 days ago, it came back. I go to bed at 10 and take melatonin and magnesium glycinate. I don't fall asleep till 3. When I do sleep for 2 hours, I instantly dream. My question is, I've dealt with sleep anxiety for 10 years, thinking it's going to kill me. I have had it now for a week and sleep maybe 2 hours a day if I'm lucky, and only know that because I dream. What do I do? Maybe I can answer this one. And first of all, I'm really sorry that you are experiencing such severe insomnia and for such a long time, Emily. And I totally can relate to what you've been experiencing, because I also been dealing for insomnia for a very long time, and it was pretty much the insomnia anxiety, thinking about sleep all the time from morning until evening, and I was literally obsessed with sleep, with all the sleep hygiene rituals, with supplements. Melatonin, magnesium, valerian root. Even I took the med route, and yeah, it's really, really challenging. So I believe, or I suppose you are new to the channel. So first of all, I would like you to suggest to deep dive into the channel, and maybe it can feel a little bit overwhelming to see like 1,000+ euros, but there is the list which is called the Natto playlist, and which is taking you really nicely step by step to to really the basics of how to overcome insomnia. But if I should start like very briefly, insomnia happens when two things are paired in our brain, which is being awake at night is a threat. So anytime there is a trigger, or there doesn't have to be any obvious trigger, but basically automatically our brain just fires an alarm, like, which is in our words, it's hyperarousal. So when we are in hyperarousal state, this is kind of like a break in our sleep system, and this is preventing us from sleep. But we often see it as an obstacle, as something which is wrong, which is not supposed to be happening. Of course, it is not a state that is really pleasant to be in, but we need to understand that our brain is doing this because it loves us and it wants to protect us. Our brain is a survival machine, and it doesn't really differentiate whether something is a real threat or a perceived threat, which means our amygdala doesn't care whether we are sleeping next to a bear, or it has this kind of like connection that being awake at night is a threat. So it just basically fires the same response. And when we get scared of this response, of this hyperarousal, of this racing heart, of this hyperarousal, of this heaviness on our chest, churning stomach, of one of the symptoms is also the wakefulness, the sleeplessness, right? Then we start to kind of like panic. We start to add more fear, more anxiety. And this is where this happens, this vicious cycle of not sleeping, being scared. The more scared we are, the less we sleep, and so on and so on. Ongoing self-perpetuating struggle with sleep. So we need to work on these layers of fear and anxiety. And first of all, we need to get the education, because the less mystery there is around sleep, the less mystery there is around us being awake at night, the easier we can accept the fact that we are awake. So we don't have that much or any control over the automatic reaction that we experience the hyperarousal, that we experience the wakefulness. But when we don't feed into this cycle, it just, as it starts, it ends. It doesn't stay with us longer than it's necessary. So Emily, please deep dive into this channel. There are almost countless of evidence that you can get over it. And what I liked most about this is that it doesn't matter how long you've been struggling. It doesn't matter whether you've been dealing with insomnia for 2 weeks or 20 years. It can stop right here. So yeah, I hope this was helpful, Emily. And I believe you have stumbled on the right help and the right channel. Cool. We have a question from Anisar Ahmad. Hello. Your channel has helped me a lot about how to deal with insomnia. I just wanted to know how social anxiety trauma is linked to chronic insomnia. Do you see any link, Daniel?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't think there is like a specific link between, let's say, social anxiety trauma and chronic insomnia. However, I think there's definitely a link in the sense that all of these versions of an inner struggle that we can encounter, I think, are rooted in the same misunderstanding, which I will get to in a second. But before that, just quickly back to Emily, a very quick comment there, which was just on the dreams. And Emily sort of said, like, I fall asleep and then I immediately dream, and then sad smiley. And you know what I've found during the many years that I've talked to people with sleep struggles, is that dreams can mean totally different things to different people. Some people are like, Daniel, I finally have dreams again. I'm so glad, because this means I'm getting that deep, refreshing sleep, right? And equally many times, like, oh my gosh, I have this full of dreams, like restless. I just have dreams all the time. So again, it's like, it's not about whether we dream or not. It's like how we think about it. For some people, having dreams can mean that they're happy, they're excited, because it meant they really slept. So anyway, just a commentary, but I totally agree with you, Veronika. For Emily, I think it's about, like, when I saw Emily's comment, I was also like, this to me is someone who probably is new and just studying the basics is really helpful. Now, back to social anxiety and trauma. So what is social anxiety? Well, if we look again if we start with insomnia, which we're very, very familiar with, we have like the core of insomnia is this misclassification. The brain has mislabeled wakefulness at night as a threat, and that leads to the struggle. And wakefulness at night is a harmless experience or state that the brain has mislabeled as a threat, right? And in any inner struggle, we have at the core of it the same thing. We have a harmless experience that the brain has mislabeled as a threat. So what is it when it comes to social anxiety? Social anxiety is when we are afraid of meeting other people, going out socially, encountering other humans. And that is completely harmless. Like meeting other people is completely harmless, but somehow our brain has mislabeled that as a threat. And what now happens is that the mere thought of going out to see other people makes our brain go like, this is not safe. You shouldn't be doing this. Like we feel this hyperarousal, palpitations, stress, etc. And maybe it leads us to say, no, I'm just going to stay at home today. I'm not going to go out there and meet other people. And what then happens is our brain we have kind of taught the brain that meeting other people is a threat. It should be avoided. We should stay home, which means we become even more afraid of it. And the few times where we may be forced to go out, our brain can go into kind of hyperdrive and being like, this is a threat. This is go home, safety, right? So it's the same loop. It's like the more we avoid this what I call a token, like a harmless situation or object that the brain has built as a threat, the more it appears to be a threat, and the more we are in a struggle. So I think when you see this, you see that there's nothing principally different from insomnia and social anxiety. It's just the focus is slightly different, but it's exactly the same struggle. So how do we meet, social anxiety? It's befriending what we have avoided. So befriending social situations, like finding a willingness to do what we have been scared of, leads to see that there's nothing to fear, right? So in this sense, I think all inner struggles, not only are they related, they're the same. It's just one struggle that shows up slightly differently depending on what our brain has focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it was actually for me quite eye-opening when with one of your teachings, when you were which was actually saying like, people often say, or I struggle with dizziness. First comes the dizziness because I was watching today the interview with Dr. Yo today, and then people struggle with insomnia, then people struggle with racing heart, then they struggle with these other symptoms, and there are just many facets of one struggle. It's not a difference. I don't know. We don't have 10 struggles. We have just one struggle, and there are just various facets, and we need to address the fear, the core, which is the fear that is at the core of this struggle. And when we address really what is in the heart of it, then all the other symptoms or all the other facets will fade.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so really many questions today. So a question from Fide. Hi, Daniel. What do you think about sleeping in increments? Sleeping 4 hours, then 2 hours, then 1 hour, then 30 minutes. It's something that is not very common. I think it may be linked to maintenance insomnia.
Okay, how interesting. So I think, Fede or Fed, that you mean that you're sleeping, first you have a chunk of 4 hours of sleep, and then another 2 hours, and then 1 hour, and then 30 minutes, and then the night is over. So you slept like, total of 4 plus 2 plus 1, 7.5 hours, something like that. To me, I would look at it this way, that our sleep is actually always fragmented. When somebody says I slept 4 hours, that means that they perceived that they slept hours. They think they slept hours. They had the experience of sleeping 4 hours. When in reality, if you look like with EEG, with like objective measurement of sleep and wakefulness, you can see that all of us humans wake up, multiple times per hour. But sometimes we just don't pay so much attention to it. So an experience like this can often be more of a self-fulfilling prophecy thing, that we're not paying attention to what happens in the first 4 hours. Like, I always get a chunk of many hours of sleep in the first part of the night, so nothing interesting happening there, and then we experience that we sleep for 4 hours. But then we have this idea that I sleep less and less as the night goes by. So then we randomly, we have a normal awakening after 4 hours. Then we're like, oh, this is the one. Yeah, this is the 4 hour awakening. Next one is going to be in 2 hours. And then, and then we pay more attention to these awakenings the more the night goes by, and then we get the experience or the perception that something happened. It can be the opposite way too. It can be somebody says, like, my experience is that I wake up very frequently in the first part of the night, but after 2 hours, then I get 6 hours of sleep. And so I think I think that, yeah, it's more kind of like what we're expecting, what we're looking for, what we're predicting, that determines what our experience of the night becomes, rather than what actually happens that night. That's how I see it.
Thank you so much for sharing. I was just reading quickly through the comments while you were speaking, and was looking for. We have a few thank you notes from HB, and where's the other one? From Marco, and I found actually an interesting question, which is from, where is it? From Cherry Blossoms. Hi coaches. If I can't sleep, even if I'm calm but hungry, is it okay to eat something? I was so hungry last night but didn't do so because I have heard of how eating is bad, slows metabolism. It slows digestions and causes weight gain. Is it true? I didn't sleep at all because of how I felt. I don't want to build this habit either of eating if I can't sleep. So what do you think, Daniel?
Yeah. Let's see. Cherry Blossoms is worried about how it could affect our metabolism, right? So to me, I don't think there's any evidence whatsoever that eating at night is like bad for our metabolism or causes any health issues or health problems. So to me, this is kind of another example of this tokenization, which is when something that is harmless, eating at night, I think is completely harmless, has started to be viewed by our brain as like a threat, as a danger, something to be avoided. And that in itself could lead to some struggle, but with Cherry Blossoms, it's kind of in the context of insomnia. So it's the fear of not sleeping, and there's a fear of not eating at the inappropriate time. There's a fear of getting the habit of eating at the inappropriate time, and things of this nature. And these are all tokens. None of them, not sleeping, being awake at night, totally harmless. Eating at night, totally harmless. Eating when you're not sleeping, totally harmless. Like, there's nothing here that actually represents any danger. And I think that's the key here, to see that these are all ideas. These are all like, the survival-minded brain coming up with things that it wants us to be safe from and try to escape, but there is no actual real threat. So to get kind of maybe more practical here, or concrete here, I would say that it is not like eating at night is fine, not eating at night is fine. It's the concern around them that creates struggle for us, right? And when we see this, we can be like, there's nothing really going on. It's just ideas. And then we choose to eat or not eat, but we don't worry about it. And then there's no struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me of like having this inner conflict, and it could go with many things. Like, for example, whether I should take a pill. Should I take a pill, or should I not take the pill? Should I take it or should I not take
Should
it?
take half.
Right. And also, should I look at the clock or should I not look at the clock? Should I look at the clock? Should I not look at the clock? And this is very common. Should I eat? Should I not eat? Should I eat? Should I not eat? The conflict about it is causing more trouble than actually doing it or not doing it. So decide and don't regret. Right. Actually, I mean, I can imagine, Cherry Blossom, like how uncomfortable it could be to lay in bed and be really hungry, like with having a churning in the stomach and thinking about sleep, about eating. So if you have a little snack, I don't see any problem with it at all. And just like Daniel just mentioned, it's all basically about this struggle that we are creating in our mind. So really make a decision and make no regrets. Just so is my 2 cents adding to this topic. And so let's answer the last question. And we have a thank you note from Fidi. Thank you, Veronika and Daniel. Your turn is very helpful. Thank you so much for your thank you note. And Question from Udet. You always advise us to accept, but it is impossible for me to accept what I'm suffering from because it's very, very difficult. And even when I accept, I hate the annoying feeling again. Again, when I have insomnia. Explain acceptance to me in detail. So,
Yes, yes.
Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I say firstly, I'm sorry about the struggle, of course, and the difficulties that are happening here, but glad that you're here and asking us, and we get a chance to help and share what we know about this. So, firstly, the first thing that came to mind was when Fidi said, like, explain to me in detail. It's very natural to ask for that, because when we are in a difficult place, what we want is like concrete steps, like almost like a prescription, like do this, then that, and this, and then everything will be fine. Naturally, we want that because we grasping at straws, we don't know what to do. The problem is, or the difficulty here is that everything we want, which is like peaceful sleep, peace of mind, it all comes from non-doing, from no effort, from not trying, from not attempting to achieve. Like, so this is tricky. We had one of our guests on this channel. I remember her saying that she was like, okay, when I get to the other side of insomnia, I'm going to tell people exactly how to do it. I'm going to write down exactly how to do this. And then when she was a guest, she was like, but I realized that's not how it works. And she was smiling, this just came to my mind. But with that said, if we try to get a little bit more practical, what is acceptance? Acceptance to me simply means the absence of trying to control something that cannot be controlled, right? So sleep, for example, is something we cannot control. And when we see this, we can accept the fact that we're awake, right? Or our emotions, right? We can be really anxious and we don't have any direct control of our emotions. So acceptance is the absence of trying to manipulate our emotions, for example. Now, we can hear this, like Fide had, and find ourselves in a place where we are awake at night, we're anxious, we're upset, we're frustrated, and we remember, oh, accepting this, like finding an okayness with this state, not trying to change it, can really help, but it's not available to us. We're like, no, I can't accept this. I don't want this. This feels terrible, right? And in that situation, it's almost like there are two choices. One choice is to try to push ourselves to accept, and the other one is to accept the fact that we're not accepting, and I think that's more helpful, if we're like, no, I gotta accept this, I must accept this, then we end up in more struggle. When we're like, I'm not accepting all that I'm going through, but at least I'm okay with the fact that I'm not accepting, that is a version of acceptance that actually leads to more and more peace, I think. So that's how I would frame it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, and I totally agree. Like, we basically all start with not accepting. We can't accept something that is so awful, so debilitating, so exhausting, and I would I would add that with where we started with this not accepting, with this resistance, we don't get immediately to full acceptance. We just start to like getting like just dip our toe into acceptance for Udit, for a little while. If you just imagine yourself like, I'm not sleeping, but I'm safe, without any additional emotions, without any additional struggle, just for a brief moment. What does it feel like to accept? Like, being okay, to tolerate, not be friends, to tolerate with being awake at night, at least for a few seconds. And this is where you start. Then then you again basically run back to resistance, right? I don't like it, I don't want it, and this is awful, I hate it. But then again, you maybe dip your toe in acceptance for a little bit longer. And with this, you start to build the tolerance, the window of tolerance. And nobody is perfect at accepting from the day one. It is a practice. It is a skill. So, and another thing that I wanted to add is acceptance doesn't mean that you like it. You can totally hate this experience and learn to tolerate it, learn to be okay with it. If you would take any random person from the street and ask this person, hey, do you want to be awake all night? And this person, of course, will say, like, no, I would prefer to sleep. It's absolutely fine to have your preferences. But the difference is here the understanding that you can't control your sleep. You can't control whether you wake up or whether you sleep. You can't control anything here. And from this understanding, the acceptance comes easier. Of course, I would rather be sleeping. Of course, I would rather feel refreshed the next day. But I know I can control it. So, what is the next best thing I can do now? I can get up and watch TV. I can just rest in my bed. I can just do some little, little, um, what was this called? These mindfulness practices, right? So uh, the choice is yours with it. So uh, don't force the acceptance. It comes naturally. Okay. That's what I wanted to add. We are almost at the end of our Q&A. I'll just read a few really nice comments from Priscilla. Daniel is a godsend for sharing his knowledge to the world. You're literally saving lives. Definitely. This is a funny one, Emily. Sorry, I didn't mean to type. I meant to look right at my phone. Thank you so much, Emily. And Cherry Blossom, thank you, both of you. And right, I think I haven't read one of these from Fidi. Thank you, Veronika and Daniel. Your channel is very helpful. And the last one, thank you. I've been on this channel for a while. Actually, your video about FFI was the first video I watched, and it helped me calm down because you said if you worry, you don't have it. Love your channel. Perfect. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for posting your questions. Thank you, Daniel, for being here, answering, for sharing with the community. And I will be back the next week with the Q&As, and Daniel will be back here some other time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.